Hi, hello, and welcome to my new channel, Ecology with Bud. I'm Anusha S, and I'm a postgraduate degree holder in M Pharmacy in the Department of Pharmacology. In this channel, I will be discussing about some concepts in ecology which will be useful for both B Pharmacy as well as M Pharmacy students. In this video, I will be discussing about some basic concepts in pharmacology. So, what is pharmacology? Pharmacology is the science of drugs. It is obtained from the Greek word pharmakon, which means drug, and logos, which means discourse. The science of drugs is having two main divisions. First one is pharmacokinetics, the other one is pharmacodynamics. So, whenever you take a drug and if the drug goes inside the body, there are two important aspects that are to be considered. First one is what the drug does to the body, and second is what the body does to the drug. So, these concepts are covered by two important topics, pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics. So, pharmacodynamics is going to deal with what the drug does to the body. It is going to say about the effects of the drug and the mechanism of the action. Whereas pharmacokinetics refers to what the body does to the drug. That is the movement of the drug and alteration of the drug by the body. That is all the ADME process, absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion. So if you get confused with these topics, then always remember that kinetics means movement. So pharmacokinetics refers to movement of drug and alteration of the drug by the body, that is the ADME. Pharmacodynamics with a D on it refers to what the drug does to the body, that is the effect of the drugs and mechanism of action. In this lecture, we will be concentrating on pharmacodynamics first. I have already told you pharmacodynamics is dealing with mechanism of drug action and effects of the drug. So how a drug is going to act? A drug is going to act by two major processes. First one is by virtue of its physical and chemical property, and second is by interacting with a target biomolecule or a protein. So first is by virtue of its physical and chemical property. For example, whenever there is a increased acid secretion in the stomach as in the case of ulcer, we are going to give a base such as antacid, and by virtue of its chemical property it is going to neutralize the excess acid. Similarly, in poisoning condition, by virtue of its or by virtue of the physical property of activated charcoal, this activated charcoal will cause adsorption, because of which we can use it for poisoning condition. So, by virtue of physical and chemical property, a drug is going to elucidate its action. That is first one. Second one is a drug is going to bind to the target biomolecule and then it is going to create its response. So majority of the drug action is by the second process, that is by interaction with the target biomolecule. So this target biomolecule is divided into four categories. One is enzyme, ion channel, transport and receptor. And if you see, majority of the drugs are going to interact with the receptor. So this video will be focusing on receptors. Now what is a receptor? A receptor is a macromolecule or a protein which is going to act as a binding site for the drug. So this binding site can be inside the cell or on the surface of the cell, which is going to act as a recognition site for the drug. That is, it is the receptor which is present on the surface of the cell or inside the cell, and this receptor is going to recognize the drug. And after they both bind with each other inside the cell, some processes occur because of which there will be a response. But a receptor itself does not have any action. Its only action is to recognize the drug. Now, there are some theories for the drug receptor interaction. There are two important theories. First one is the theory of receptor occupancy, and second theory is the two-state receptor theory. So first theory is proposed by Clark, who says that a drug is going to create its action because a drug will bind with the receptor. So he is saying that a drug will show its action when a drug binds to receptor. And he also told that this is governed by law of mass of action. So in equation 1 you can see a drug, that is D, plus receptor R is going to give DR, that is drug receptor complex, and that is directly proportional to E, that is the effect. But this is not true, because drug has to bind to receptor to cause action. That is one of the requirement, but that is not the only requirement. So another requirement for the drug action should be the drug has to bind to the receptor. At the same time, the drug has to activate the receptor to create the response. So in order to accommodate this theory inside the first equation, a new quantity was incorporated into the equation, that is the S. S means the strength of the stimulus. So when a drug D is going to interact with receptor R, it is going to produce a drug receptor complex, and this drug receptor complex is going to create a stimuli. So the strength of the stimuli will be based on the effect of the drug, whether the drug is strong or weak. Depending on that, the stimuli also will be strong or weak, and that will be proportional to the effect. So if you see in this theory of drug action, there are two important concepts that is into focus. First, the drug has to bind to the receptor. Second, the drug has to bind to the receptor and activate the receptor and cause the response. So this entire theory of receptor occupancy is revolving around two important concepts, that is efficacy and affinity. So what is affinity? Affinity is the ability of the drug to bind with the receptor, and efficacy or intrinsic activity is the ability of the drug to activate the receptor and generate a response. So the first theory, that is a theory of receptor occupancy, is about affinity and efficacy. So there is also another concept which is not related to this theory, but it is very important for you to know, that is potency. So potency is the amount of drug that is needed to produce a certain response, and I will be discussing about this in detail in the next slides. So based on this theory, now we are going to define the drug as agonist, antagonist, inverse agonist and partial agonist. So what is an agonist? An agonist is the compound or a drug that is having affinity as well as maximum intrinsic activity. That is, it is able to bind to the receptor, and also it is able to activate the receptor and generate response. So that is a agonist. Now there are two types in agonist. One is orthosteric agonist or primary agonist. Second is allosteric agonist. So you see, in our body there are many receptors, and inside our body, within our body, there are some compounds that are having the ability to bind to these receptors. So these compounds are endogenous ligands. So if our drug that we are going to give is going to replace this endogenous ligand, or if it is going to bind to the same receptor where this endogenous ligand is going to bind, then that is a primary agonist or a orthosteric agonist, a drug that binds to the same site where the endogenous agonist binds. So that is a orthosteric agonist. Allosteric agonist means it is going to bind to a different region on the receptor, not on the region where the endogenous ligands bind. It is going to bind to another region. So that is a allosteric agonist. So you remember, agonist will have affinity as well as maximum intrinsic activity. Next, antagonist. Antagonist is having affinity, that is, it is able to bind to receptor, but it does not have intrinsic activity, that is, it is not able to activate the receptor. Then you might ask me, what is the use of antagonists then? Antagonist, it is going to block or reduce the action of the agonist. That is, antagonist itself has no effect, but it can block or reduce the actions of the agonist. So that is antagonist. Inverse agonist has affinity, they also have intrinsic activity. That is, they are able to bind to the receptor and they are also able to activate the receptor. But this efficacy is negative, which means they are going to produce an activity which is opposite to that of the agonist. So that is an inverse agonist. Partial agonists have affinity and submaximal intrinsic activity, which means they're able to bind to the receptor and they're also able to activate the receptor, but they're not able to activate the receptor fully. They are not able to activate the receptor to 100%. They are only able to activate the receptor partially, that is up to 50%. So that is partial agonist, and this is theory of receptor occupancy. Next is two-state receptor model. So in this model, they are going to believe that the receptor is going to be in two conformations, active conformation and inactive conformation, based on which the drug is going to be defined in these following ways. So first is agonist. If the drug is able to predominantly, or if the drug is able to bind only to the active conformation and shift the equilibrium to active conformation, then it is called as an agonist. A competitive antagonist can bind to active conformation and inactive conformation with equal affinity. and here there is no response generated. Why? Because antagonist cannot does not have intrinsic activity, right? So they are not able to produce response, but they are able to bind to the active and inactive conformations with equal affinity. A partial agonist is the one which is able to bind to both active and inactive conformation, but their affinity for the active conformation is slightly higher. Therefore, they are going to produce a partial effect or a submaximal response. So, you might ask me, then what is the use if the drug is going to produce only submaximal response? But it is having a very important advantage that partial agonist can be used to buffer the therapeutic activity. They can act in a such a way that they can inhibit excessive receptor stimulation without abolishing the receptor stimulation, because they are going to act in a 50-50 way. There is no excessive stimulation or there is no total inhibition. So this is useful in those drugs which are given for smoking cessation therapy. So if the drug is not going to produce excessive receptor stimulation, then the patient will not crave for nicotine, and the patient will not be getting high nicotine also. So there will be a balance in that. So in such a situation, partial agonist is very useful. Next is the inverse agonist. So inverse agonist is going to have high affinity for the for the inactive conformation, and it is going to stabilize the receptors in the inactive conformation. So it is going to have an effect that is opposite to that of the agonist. So that is an inverse agonist. So same is shown in the diagram. So full agonist is going to bind only to the active conformation. Partial agonist is having affinity to both with a slightly increased affinity to active conformation. Competitive antagonist is having equal affinity to both the conformations, whereas inverse agonist is going to have increased affinity towards the inactive conformation. So this is two-state receptor model, and these are the two theories for receptor based on which we are going to classify drugs as agonist, antagonist, inverse agonist, and partial agonist. Now, how are you going to quantify agonism? How are you going to say which drug is better? So, for that, there are two important concepts. One is potency, the other one is efficacy. So, I already told you that potency means the amount of the drug that is required to produce the effect. So, in this diagram, first diagram, you can see that drug X is going to produce effect, and drug Y is also is producing some effect, but drug X is going to produce the effect in much lesser concentrations when compared to that of drug Y. You can see that EC50 is the half maximal concentration, or the concentration at which 50% of therapeutic effect has been achieved. So drug X is going to achieve its effect at a much lesser EC50 when compared to that of the drug Y, or at much lesser dose. So drug X is more potent when compared to that of drug Y, and drug X is more better. So this is one concept. So here you can also notice that when a drug is more potent, the curve is shifting towards left side. So this you have to always remember. If a drug is potent, curve will shift to left. Next is relative efficacy. Now there are two drugs, drug X and drug Y. So drug X is having 100% response, whereas drug Y is having only 50% response. So based on this also you can say drug X is better. So to quantify agonism, you can use potency and efficacy. So these are two important concepts. So here you have to also remember that if a drug is having more affinity, the curve will shift to right. If a drug is having more potency, the curve will shift to left. So this you have to remember. Now how do you quantify antagonism? So first one is competitive antagonism, equilibrium type or surmountable antagonism. So in competitive antagonism, this antagonist is chemically similar to that of the agonist. So since it is very similar to the agonist, what it will do, it is going to bind to the site where the agonist will bind. So now the agonist is in the place where the antagonist is in the place where the agonist will bind, and since the antagonist is having affinity, the curve will be shifting to right. As I've already told, if affinity is there, curve will be shifting to right. So in the presence of antagonist, the DRC of the agonist is going to shift to rightwards. It is going to shift to right, but since the antagonist is having no intrinsic activity, that is, it is not having the ability to produce any response, there will be no response. Now if you increase the concentration of the agonist, since the antagonist has bound to the site irreversibly. That is, antagonist is in the site reversibly only. If you increase the concentration of agonist, this antagonist will leave the binding site and give way for the agonist to bind. So when agonist is binding, the response will become 100%. So I will tell you in short, when an antagonist is similar to that of the agonist, it is going to bind to the site where usually agonist will bind, and the curve will be shifting to rightwards. When you increase the concentration of the agonist, since the antagonist has bound irreversibly to its site, the agonist will replace the antagonist and the agonist will sit in the place, because of which, the since agonist has the ability to produce 100% response, the response will be 100%. So if somebody asks you about competitive antagonism, you have to say that in competitive antagonism, the DRC of the agonist in presence of antagonism will be shifting towards rightwards with 100% response, or with no change in the response. So equilibrium type here means it is a reversible type, that is, antagonist is bound reversibly, and it is surmountable antagonism. Next is non-equilibrium antagonism. So in non-equilibrium antagonism, what happens is, this antagonist is again chemically similar to agonist. So it is going to bind to the site where usually the agonist will bind, but this antagonist has bound to the binding site irreversibly or pseudo-reversibly, pseudo-irreversibly. That means they are forming strong covalent bonds. So it is not easy for the agonist to replace the antagonist even in higher concentrations. So what happens now? The DRC of the agonist in the presence of the antagonist will shift to rightwards, but since the agonist is not able to replace the antagonist, the response is not 100%, because antagonist is still in the site, antagonist cannot produce any effect, the response will be decreasing. So that you can see in the diagram. Okay, or the curve is shifting to the right, but the 100% response is decreasing. So that is non-equilibrium antagonism. So that's why they have told it causes a shift of the dose response curve to right, and progressive depression of the maximal response increases, and if the spare receptors are low. So I will tell you the about the spare receptors in the next coming slides, but you have to just remember, in non-equilibrium type, the DRC curve will shift to right, and the dose response curve, the maximum response, is decreasing. In non-competitive antagonism, this is also called non-surmountable antagonism. So here what happens, the agonist and antagonist are not chemically similar to each other. So the antagonist is going to bind to a site different from that of the agonist binding site. So even if you're going to increase the concentrations of the agonist is not going to reverse the block completely, because both are binding in different sites, right? So if you're going to increase the concentration of agonist is not able to replace the antagonist. So here also the curve will shift to right, and the maximum response will be decreasing. So this is non-competitive antagonism, otherwise called as non-surmountable antagonism. So allosteric agonist. So first what I told you in the before slide, that the agonist is going to bind to a different site. So that is a allosteric antagonist. The previous slide I was discussing about allosteric antagonist. Allosteric agonists are also there. So when the antagonist is when the potentiator is going to bind to a site distinct from the agonist binding site, it is having the ability to increase the response or potentiate the response. So here also the shift will be towards the, so here the shift will be towards the left, because I have told you that here the activity is going to be increased, right? So the curve will be shifting to right. Only in the presence of antagonist, the curve will shift to right, because in the presence of antagonist, the affinity will increase, so it will be shifting to right. But in the presence of an agonist, which is going to potentiate the effect, curve will shift to left, showing that it is more potent. So in allosteric agonist, it is in allosteric both agonist and antagonism, there is one limiting factor, that there will be saturation, that is, the allosteric effect is saturable. So we have studied about allosteric agonists and allosteric antagonists. Both are allosteric modulators whose primary effect is to increase or decrease the effects of the primary agonists, and they do not have any effects on its own. So in the non-equilibrium type, I told that whenever the antagonist is binding to the binding site irreversibly or pseudo-reversibly, the DRC of the agonist in the presence of antagonist will shift to rightwards, and the DRC curve will be, the maximum response of the DRC will be decreasing if the spare receptors are low. So I told that. So what are spare receptors? Spare receptors are, if a full agonist is there, the full agonist will be showing maximum response, even though if it is not able to bind to all of the receptors. That is, the agonist will be binding to only less receptors, but yet it will be able to show maximum response. So this can be seen in the non-equilibrium type. Though the agonist is not able to replace the antagonist fully, with whatever less receptors the agonist has bound to, it can still show a maximum response. So if that is the case, then we have to understand that spare receptors are existing in the condition. So that is what it is explained here. If you knock out the spare receptors with an irreversible antagonist, the full agonist drug will be still able to achieve the maximum response in the system, because it is going to occupy some of the receptors and show maximum response, but it will be acting at a reduced potency. A higher concentration of the drug will be required, but still it can produce a higher response. So that is the spare receptor concept. It's a very important concept that you have to understand. So coming to the last portion of this session, uh, receptor was first found by Langley when he was doing an experiment in the salivary secretion in the dog. So now if we see, though it was discovered in 1905, still receptor is the heart of pharmacology, because most of the drugs that are coming in the market is mainly targeted to these receptors. So these receptors were first found by 1905, and it is still the heart of pharmacology. So that is one of the information that I want you to know. So in the next lecture, I will be telling you about different types of receptors and how is it regulated. So if you find that this video is very informative, please like, share, comment and subscribe, and also share it to your friends, so that I will be motivated to create new videos in the future. Thank you.